Once again, we're down here in downtown Joliet at Joliet Restaurant. They call it Joliet Tavern. It's a great name, a wonderful place. And before we begin our get to know you interview with the new mayor of the city of Joliet, Bob Odenkirk, is here with us. Thank you for taking time out, by the way.
Thank you very much.
We're going to be with you in just a minute. I want to tell you folks about Joliet. Great restaurant at Chicago and Cass Street, downtown Joliet. We're in the library, and it's a place where you can come and have, bridal showers. You can have your group, your banquets, parties up here. Downstairs, they've got the full, beautiful Italian dining room down there and a sports bar. So it's kind of like two worlds, and both of them are great to visit. Anytime, come on down to Joliet at Cass and Chicago and downtown Joliet. I'm Richard Fredrickson, and we welcome you. Great event, Monday night, the swearing in of our new mayor of the city of Joliet, Bob Odenkirk. And Bob, I thank you for taking time out from a busy schedule that you have. What we're going to do here is we're going to find out about this new mayor. And the way to do that is to start from the very, very beginning. And that's with your family. Mom and Dad, tell me about brothers and sisters, and we'll start there.
Okay, my parents were all the whole family's from the south side of Chicago. I grew up in the south suburbs in Oak Forest. I had an older sister, an older brother, and a younger brother. My older sister, a couple years ago, was inducted into the DePaul Sports Hall of Fame. She's an outstanding athlete. We all were good athletes growing up. My older brother played baseball at Lewis. My younger brother played football at Eastern Illinois University. In any case, I first came to Joliet in 1993. I was hired as a Joliet police officer. I worked there for 10 years. The last 4 years I was on the police department. I went to law school at night in John Marshall Law School. I completed my law degree, and then in 2003 I left the police department and started working as an attorney.
So as a police officer, you're going to school at night, and are you living at that time in the south suburbs and then by car going back and forth to Chicago?
No, I was here in Joliet. I was working as a policeman. I should think I had a couple watch commanders that were really terrific. Lieutenant Pedersen, Lieutenant Hernandez. They really helped me work around my schedule. So for 4 years, I didn't have a lot of time off. I didn't. The weekend days off, I would choose to work and have days off during the week to accommodate the schedule for law school.
Yeah.
So, it was a long haul, but
it sounded like it. I mean, just to commute into Chicago is enough of a challenge. So you're an attorney in 1998?
Oh, 2003.
2003.
Yes.
And so as an attorney, you come and you open your own law firm, but you go into someone else's firm first.
Yeah, originally I worked for the city of Chicago for the first 3 years. I was a prosecutor for the city of Chicago. I came back to Joliet and I worked with Jeff Tomczak in his office after Jeff left the state's attorney's office. I ended up going to Iraq for 2 years, working with the State Department overseas in Iraq. I came back to Joliet in 2010. I joined the firm of Carlson and Zalazzo. I became a partner about a year after that. Dave Carlson, my old partner, is a judge now, so it's me and Ken Zalazzo. And, there's another partner and other attorneys who work at the firm.
Okay. How did you end up in Iraq with the State's Department?
I knew a couple people that were over there, and at that time, there's a lot of different jobs that were being filled, but the State Department was looking for people with specific skill sets. One of them was what I had, a former police officer who as an attorney had a law degree. I went over in 2008, so the war was essentially over, had it been over, but we were in the process of rebuilding the country, and the coalition at the time was still trying to determine who was loyal to the new government in Iraq, who the old Ba'ath Party members were who were disloyal. So that was going on. We're vetting people over there and trying to get the Iraqis up to speed to turn power over, which we eventually did.
Yeah. Wow. While you're a Joliet police officer and you're going to Chicago, are you a married guy at this time?
I was, yes.
Okay. When did you get married?
I got married in 1997.
All right. Well, tell me about your family.
Well, unfortunately, that marriage didn't survive law school.
Okay.
But I did have a daughter. I have a 14-year-old daughter.
I thought so. Yeah.
I remarried a couple years ago to Rebecca, who's a Joliet native. She grew up on the east side. Her parents still live on the east side. She's very proud of that.
Yeah, well, she should be.
She should be. She went to Joliet Central. So with my 14-year-old daughter, there's a 10-year-old stepson who's special needs, and then there's an 8-year-old stepdaughter.
Well, that's a busy center right there. And now the question is on the minds of many of the folks out there. You got a family, you're young, you've got your law firm, and now you're mayor of the city of Joliet. 2 questions. How are you going to handle all of that? How are you going to juggle all your time on that? And the other question I always ask everyone who runs and wins election, why?
Well, the first question, I am going to treat, and I have been treating in the couple weeks since the election, the mayor is a full-time job for me. I'm very fortunate with the firm. The firm does well. I have 2 partners and several other attorneys who work for me. So, I will obviously keep the firm going. I think primarily I'm going to be bringing business in, maybe doing some of the managing of the firm, but I will not have a regular court call or handle a caseload that other attorneys handle. That's not what I'm going to do. As far as why, I got involved. Well, I ran for the city council in 2011. At the time, I'd been home from Iraq for about a year, and there were a lot of questions I think that a lot of Joliet residents had as to how the city had been doing so well financially for so many years, like when I was here as a police officer, and how it had fallen on such hard times. So that's ultimately why I decided to run back in 2011. After 4 years of being on the council, I identified some things that I thought were wrong, and some things that I definitely thought I could do better as mayor. I had a lot of people support me or were encouraging me to do it, and certainly throughout the campaign, the supporters really came more and more. I had a lot of support. So I thought I had an opportunity. It was a great opportunity to be successful at this, and I really did believe, and I do believe now, that some of the things I think I can do for Joliet will be good for the city. Maybe the skill set I'm bringing to the mayor's office would be something positive for the city.
We're going to go through some of the issues and some of I'm going to give you, when we get to that part, I'm just going to say a word. I'm going to say like Rialto, and then I'll let you. What's your perspective? What's your, what do you think of the Rialto? Is it important downtown, et cetera? We're not there yet, though. Okay, we're not there yet. Interesting question. You've got your friends from the old neighborhood in the south side of Chicago, or the old neighborhood in the south suburbs, and you're out visiting them, and they ask you this question. Describe Joliet for me. I've not been to that city. What's Joliet like?
I think the best description is what I get, or what I've always got from a lot of my relatives who never came to Joliet except for coming out to visit me over the years, especially my parents or my aunts, older folks. Joliet, the cathedral area where I live, it reminds them of where they grew up. And I think a lot of them, I remember my father, when I first moved to the cathedral area, my next door neighbor had been living in the house for 60 years on Sherwood. And my dad was amazed, again, from his life story, that someone would live in the same neighborhood for 60 years. Because for a lot of those people, it just didn't happen. Those neighborhoods changed, or people left the city. So a lot of my relatives really get a kick out of Joliet. It reminds them a lot of growing up, and they really admire that in this city, the neighborhoods haven't changed, that people have held on and really kept what was nice years ago nice today. Yeah. So, and it gets relayed back a lot. But a lot of my relatives are very impressed with the city when they come here.
Good. So I said we're going to do a couple of, just kind of quickies. The Rialto Theater.
The Rialto's vital to downtown. There's any question about it. My office is in the Rialto office next to the theater, and I absolutely could see the difference on nights where there are shows and nights where they're not. The buzz that's created downtown, the restaurants like Juliet's will tell you how much better they do on show nights. I think we've put a lot of effort and ultimately a lot of money into revitalizing downtown. I think we're going in the right direction, but I think the Rialto, it's been identified as key to whatever plan we're going to use, and I believe that's accurate. I think the Rialto has to stay vibrant and stay open and be doing a vibrant business to help everything else in the downtown area.
Now, it hasn't been presented yet, but are we just around the corner from the major master plan being presented?
I think so. I have meetings this week with people. I think the plan, they've kind of tipped their hand a little bit as to what direction they think they're going in. I think a lot of it, the train center that's being built, I think talks about new courthouse. I think the JJC building, a lot of it's all contingent on this coming together. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I definitely think we're heading in the right direction, and I think the plan is going to incorporate all this.
Good, good. All right, well, you mentioned the transportation center. There was some critiquing about, is there still money coming in from the state? Are we going to be, hopefully moving forward, and we're financially okay with this?
We're going to move forward. The money's been committed by the state, so I think we're okay in that regard. Amtrak recently announced that they were cutting service or cutting,
Right.
And that could be a problem. There was some talk in the council, and I credit the council people who brought this up about the spending and whether or not we're within the budget. I think that they're doing their job well on the council when they're holding the city staff to what the budget says or what the budget proposes for spending. I think ultimately we're going to be fine there, but again, it's fluid. It's hard to see. It certainly was hard to see a year or two ago that Amtrak would make this announcement today, or that the new governor would be making some of the cuts that he has. But having said that, the money is committed. I believe that project will be seen
be
through.
there.
Yep.
You mentioned the council. At times in 2014, there was a real, how do I put this? Colorful, controversial, conflicting opinions, viewpoints. From a viewer standpoint, it was interesting, informative, and different. What do you think the council that you're going to be with, you were with them just days ago, depending on when you're watching this. This is going to go on for a whole week. Different council, you think?
Well, I hope so. There definitely are some strong personalities on the council, including mine, and people with strong opinions. I think it's healthy. I think disagreement and debate is healthy. I would agree that over the last 4 years, there were some times where maybe debate spilled over, things got a little personal or a little bit more heated than they should have been. But having said that, I've spoken with each council member individually. I've actually reached out to them. I asked for their feedback on what committees they would like to be appointed to. I've appointed every council member to be at the head of at least one committee. So, everyone has their own opinion about what happened in the last 4 years. But my attitude is, going forward, this is how I want to see things get done. And everybody has been receptive to that. So, again, I know there's different personalities, but everybody seems to, I believe everyone on the council wants the same thing. They want to do what they think is right for the city of Joliet.
Well, I know you've been having meetings with some stakeholders downtown and different department heads, and you've had probably a meeting with the city manager as well, I would presume, or will be having one.
Yeah, I've had a couple real brief meetings with the city manager. What I have done is assemble the transition team, and it's people from all over the community that are taking part of this. The transition team is looking at a lot of different aspects of city government, and the team will make recommendations. They're going to do a written report and submit that to the city manager. So when that's done, it'll be done in short order. I really intend to sit down with the city manager and try to implement what the transition team and what I feel need to be done with Joliet to help move the city forward.
Now, there are appointments, too, that you'll be making as well, right?
Yes.
All right, back to those venues. You mentioned it earlier when you were looking at talking about the transportation center. You mentioned intermodal. Good, bad, and different. How's it looking for Joliet?
I think the intermodal is great. It is a great source of revenue for the city and jobs. I do believe, and I've met with county executive and several of our state representatives, that there is a problem with the amount of truck traffic.
Yeah.
The roads were not built for what is now going in there and what's going to continue to come. There's more projects coming. I think all the elected officials in the county and the city are on board with this, agree that there's an issue that has to be addressed. I've specifically met with different individuals on how to address this. I think that's something you're going to see from my administration going forward. I think the city of Joliet is going to take the lead on some projects to try to relieve the truck traffic and help with the infrastructure in that area.
It's one of those big challenges. Now, you have the Ileana, which is kind of out there, and then you also have the Hobart Road Bridge.
Yes.
Concept or idea or plan. Are those two areas would be a focus for you in 2015?
Yeah, the Ileana is a little bit out of our purview. It's out of the city. Certainly, we would influence our elected officials in Springfield to pursue that, and we have, and they are. The Hobo Bridge is something that we do have more control over. There was a proposal that was brought forward about a year ago. I talked about it at the council. Other council people have talked about it. I think I intend, again, I do want to get feedback from city staff, from the transition team, but I intend to actively pursue that bridge. And there's obviously a lot of kinks that need to be worked out, but I think that would be a big solution to getting the trucks off of Route 53, getting them on a toll bridge that will generate income, and road that will be able to pay for itself for its repairs. And as much as anything, get the trucks off of Laraway Road away from that school. So it's something that the city can do. It's something I do plan on pursuing very actively.
We mentioned Rialto. You mentioned Rialto is key to downtown. What about downtown Joliet, the whole downtown area?
Well, yeah, I said earlier, we spent money on a plan. There's a lot of time and money invested in downtown Joliet. I think a lot of stakeholders in the Joliet community want to see downtown come back. And I do think it's headed in the right direction. I think there's small steps. I think there's other things that need to be done. I have some of my own ideas, but certainly working with the Camaros group, who we've paid to develop a plan. Hopefully, we see the courthouse situation resolved. You see Chicago Street opened up. You see the parking situation in downtown improved, and there's a lot of ideas on the table and ways to do that. And I think through that, through the train station and the investment that the city and the county are making in this area, I think you will see more businesses like Juliet's follow and come down here. I do believe it's going to happen.
It's great to have people like John Bays opening up and developing his buildings as well in the downtown area. Let's travel a little bit west. Well, it comes right downtown, but it's a corridor. It's a main corridor coming into Joliet, and that's Jefferson Street. Anyone taking a look at Jefferson Street?
Yes, we have. Even a few years back, when Tom Thanis was the city manager, there was talk about establishing a TIF district on Jefferson Street. I think it's something that should be revisited. Clearly, there's a lot. Jefferson Street offers a lot. It does seem like the better businesses or the more vibrant businesses are moving further and further west. Yeah. I say I live in the Cathedral area. I live right off of Rainer Avenue. So those are still good neighborhoods. It was still people that would consume with things like Jefferson Street. I think the city needs to get a little bit more active and maybe try to encourage more businesses nearer to the river on Jefferson Street.
Sometimes it just takes a little bit. The greening of Jefferson Street has been really enhanced. I mean, you might not think of it, but those grasses and the flowers that are in the parking areas are a big improvement for Jefferson Street. Every city that you go into, as large as Joliet, or whether it be Rockford or whether it be Aurora, there's always a north side, the south side, i.e. Chicago. We have the west side and east side. What about the east side of Joliet?
Yeah, during my campaign, I received a lot of support from people on the east side, and that was all a constant question. And when I was a police officer, I spent most of my career working on the east side. So there's no question that at least there's a perception among the residents of the city that there's a difference between the east and the west side in the way that they're treated. I definitely think as a city that we can do better. Letting the people on the east side know that they're included, that they're part of the city, that they're not the stepchild or held off. I do think that there's things the city can do and that we should do to try to do economic development on the east side. I talked during the campaign, and I'm going to pursue the idea of the city hiring a lobbyist, either for Springfield or for Washington, D.C. I believe, I'm certain that there is a lot of grant money that has been left on the table over the years. For example, there's brownfield money to redevelop sites like U.S. Steel. And obviously, it's not as simple as just getting a grant. You need private partners to come in. But I know the money's there. The federal government encourages for private developers to come in and redevelop neighborhoods just like what we have over there. I think we have to be more aggressive in going after that. But I do think it's something that can be done, and I think it's something the community would really embrace, to see new development coming in on the east side, not just things being built at the mall or far west.
Well, kudos to the Hispanic community, because they've done a wonderful job on Collins Street. I love Collins Street, particularly in the summertime. It's like you're visiting, you know, little Cancun there at times. A lot of family-owned, independent-owned businesses, and it's great from what it was. Basically, Collins Street was just a bunch of bars, and now it's a different atmosphere. But as we continue up Collins Street, of course, this kind of interview would not be full or complete if I didn't mention what in the world is going to happen to Joliet Corrections. Are we making any progress whatsoever in that direction?
No, I think there's been a stall there. I will say, since the election, I've had two different developers contact me. And again, I think whatever is going to happen there, and I do think that there's potential, it's going to have to be a partnership between private development and our government, not just city government, but state, in that case, state government or federal government, to get federal dollars in to help, to give the incentives to a private developer to do something there.
It would be huge because right now, Joliet, I'm not going to have the exact numbers, but I know they're increasing every year because of Route 66 and the Lincoln Highway coming through Joliet. We literally have thousands of tourists that come through Joliet. Some stay, some begin their Route 66 tour at the Joliet Historical Museum, which is the Route 66 Information Center. And so we do have that at the Ironworks, and people love to go to that prison, even if they just get to go to the parking lot and take pictures at the kiosks out there. So if ever in the near future that could be turned over private, public, somehow, some way, it would become the, what's that prison out in California, out in the middle of the bay?
Alcatraz?
The Alcatraz of the Midwest. And it could happen to here in Joliet. You mentioned East Side, West Side, and the police is an issue that you've had on several occasions in the City Council, that we need more police officers out in the neighborhoods of the East Side as well as the West Side, North and South Side. Is that something that can actually happen? Is it in progress? And how do you where does the money come from to make that happen?
Well, it's in progress. This year, when the budget was presented to us in December, there was in the budget to hire one police officer. The council rejected that and ultimately pushed for 10 to be hired this year. And those officers are going to be slotted in the neighborhood policing program. I made the argument a lot during the campaign. I came here in 1993 when NOPT, the neighborhood policing, was a new concept. And it was funny, there was a real divide between the old timers who hated the idea. They didn't want to be social workers, they didn't see that as their job, and newer or younger guys in the department that were buying into it. And the brass at the time, the chief, Chief Nowicki and Chief Beasley, definitely, ultimately Gertis and Hayes and Trafton, all bought into it and really pushed that program. But there's no question it worked. The crime when I came here in the early 90s, and as Joliet residents know, was really off the charts for a city this size. And I think the relationships that were forged through NOPT with the residents, and I think with community leaders, with church leaders and community leaders, it did make a difference. The crime went way down for a long time. Unfortunately, the NOPT program was cut after 2008. The city engaged in early buyouts and lost a lot of years of service, a lot of experience left the police department. And I think, I don't know if you could directly correlate the rise in murders, the huge increase in murders on that, but I think there is a relationship between no more NOPT and less police officers and the bad number of homicides we've had since Thanksgiving. And one other thing, this is timely, what's happened in Baltimore, what happened in Ferguson, there's no question in my mind, I think Chief Benton would agree, and the brass in the police department, that we've been fortunate here. We have had police shootings, but there hasn't been that type of unrest because I think there is a trust or a bond that's been formed between these communities and the police department. I think NOPT played a huge role in that. I think we're all seeing the benefits of it right now. I think Councilman Morris or Councilwoman Gavin on the council would agree that there's a much better relationship between Joliet police and minorities than there are in most other cities. So I think it's a benefit. I think credit should go back to what was done in the early 90s, the fact that we've had a much calmer city in light of the unrest that's happening all over the country right now.
You'd have to go back to the 60s for, during the civil rights days when the bridges were all up and in that history of our town. And I was going to ask you about that, and I'm glad you just added that in there. The short-term goals. Now, you mentioned a few of them. Do you have any short-term and long-term goals as mayor, or is it a little too early to ask?
No, it's not, it's a fair question. I think the immediate goal, and I have spoken with Jim Hawk and city staff about this, is we have to get our hands around the Evergreen Terrace issue. It's been controversial. It's unfortunate because it became very political, and the last couple of years it seemed like it was almost like a gotcha game with the politics or sound bites. There's a real issue there that we're facing, and there is no plan in place as we speak on how to deal with it. That's going to change. It's going to change within a week or two. The city council is going to be forced to decide whether to buy Evergreen Terrace. I think unanimously on the council would like to see Evergreen Terrace gone, would like to see a better standard of living for the people who live there, and would like to see that neighborhood rehab. But there are a lot of other issues that go along with that. We were sued in the middle of that lawsuit by the federal government in 2011. We settled that lawsuit, but that settlement put real tough conditions on Joliet going forward. And those conditions are going to have to be complied with in whatever we do with Evergreen Terrace. So we're going to need to identify how we're going to comply with what the federal government is ordering us to do, what the final number is going to be. We know it's going to be $15.5 million to buy it, but the number, I think the number is going to be at least double that to redevelop and clean up that property like we wanted to, and then ultimately how we're going to pay for it. So it's unfortunate that those questions are still open-ended even as we speak today, but short-term goal, I can assure you that's not going to be open-ended for much longer. There's going to be a plan in place. It's going to be presented to the council and to the public. So when the city council decides on whether we're going to purchase Evergreen, it's going to be an informed decision on what the roadmap is going to be, how we're going to get from point A to point B to point C, how long we think it's going to take to get there, and what we think it's going to cost to do it.
There's a diamond in the rough in terms of the housing projects in Joliet. The Liberty, I don't know if you've been out there or not.
Yes.
This is a beautiful area, mixed housing. It's homes, single-family homes. And I don't know if there's many communities like that in the Chicagoland area, but I always look at what the city of Chicago, where you're originally from, did with those high-rise tenements today. That's gentrified, and there's a mixed housing in there from folks who are at the poverty level all the way up to people who are making lots of cha-ching, living together, shopping together, and I can't think of the name of that housing project. It was there for years.
Probably Cabrini Green.
Cabrini Green. And now they're putting up 2 or 3 more not high-rises, but developments across the street there. And that was in the Tribune just a few weeks ago.
Right.
So someday, maybe, that could be that area, because that area of St. Pat's area, isn't it, here in Joliet?
St. John's.
St. John's.
Yes.
So the people in that area, I believe, really want to have something done with Evergreen Terrace, because it's an impact on their homes. The value of their homes has gone way down since that place was built. And so it is going to be on your turn the next 4 years. You're going to be dealing with that.
It is. I was an attorney for the city of Chicago when a lot of those projects were coming down. So I have a little bit of insight. I didn't work on those projects, but I know. Cabrini Green was a success story. Most of the other ones weren't. If you look on the west side of the city, like the Rockwell Gardens, those areas, they weren't redeveloped. Some were. On the south side, the development basically ended at 35th Street. Everything south of 35th is sitting vacant. There's nothing there, or very little there. The Stateway Gardens, the Robert Taylor Homes. Ida B. Wells along the lakefront on the south side was redeveloped. So it's a mixed bag, and I think, again, that's what we're facing in Evergreen Terrace. I asked a question of Holstein, the consultant, when they were in front of the council. And they came in front of the council about a year ago and gave an excellent presentation. They were there about an hour and a half. They fielded every question. But one of the develops, they were part of Cabrini Green, and that did redevelop. They also were part of the Hiller Towers at 22nd and Clark Street, right by Chinatown, if you're familiar with it.
And that's a pretty nice area actually there, isn't it?
It's better than it was.
Yeah.
But those towers are still there. They've never been
Yeah,
torn down.
yeah.
And I asked them if they thought that what happened there could happen in Evergreen Terrace, that we buy it and it never comes down. And they said that they
Yeah,
did. That
it
was a
could happen.
possibility.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of open-ended questions, and that's one. I think as a council, we need to decide what exactly we want to do with that property, and again, how we're going to pay for it. How much is it going to cost, and how we're going to pay for it. But the Liberty Meadows up on the hill, I worked in that neighborhood. It's much better than what it was years ago. Those were the McKay Street projects.
Yeah.
It's a real nasty neighborhood. It was a dangerous neighborhood. It's not anymore. It's been
You
completely
could drive in
redeveloped.
there anytime. Yeah.
I think the key to that was the Housing Authority partnered on that, and there was a lot of federal money
Yep.
that allowed it to happen. Ultimately, I think that may be the key with Evergreen going forward. We're going to need
That
assistance
type of housing is,
to build something
Yeah.
like that, to clear land and to
Yeah.
build that. But certainly, it's a success story. It worked in that
Yeah,
neighborhood.
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, we talked with Michael Hamilton and the folks there are still doing a fine job with the Joliet Housing Authority. They've had some bumps in the road, but Michael's doing a great job. I'm going to give you an opportunity here to look into whichever camera, I guess that one right there, or maybe this one right here, and spend as much time as you want to as you just address the citizens of Joliet. You did so Monday, but if you take the advantage and the opportunity right now, just we'll conclude the show with your message to your fellow citizens of Joliet.
Thank you. I would just say, again, thank you to those who supported me in the election. To those who didn't, I certainly hope to earn your support going forward. This is an awesome responsibility that I have, and I take it seriously. I'm very proud to be in this position. I'm very encouraged with what we have here in Joliet. We talked about some negatives, but there's so many positive things happening, and I think the future for Joliet is bright. I would pledge as the mayor that I will treat with respect and work with the entire council. I think that the council pulling together and our community working together going forward is by far the best way to achieve what we need to do in Joliet. So I really look forward to the next 4 years. Again, I thank you for this opportunity, and I'm humbled, and again, just assure the citizens that I take this very seriously.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
good luck to you,
Thank you.
and we're going to see you next time. I'm Richard Fredrickson, and this has been a Channel 6 production.